One of the most important skill in this industry is creativity. You must have an open mind as a property investor, as a property entrepreneur. The people who are going to make money in 2024 are people with an open mind. If that is the fact, then you have to be good at leverage. How do you leverage debt? How do you re-leverage debt? How do you structure debt? And how do you restructure debt? Jas, welcome to the Wealth and Business Podcast.
Dr. Daniel, thank you very much for having me.
Great, I'm so excited for this.
I'm really excited as well. It's my first podcast opportunity and what an amazing host to have me on.
Oh, fantastic. I'm really excited for this. So Jas, for those who don't really know you, who is Jas? Who is Jas?
Hi guys, my name is Jas. I've been a member of the Wealth Circle community for a little while now.
Yeah.
I've got a background in property myself, so I've been working in an investment agency for around about 5 years with a focus on buy-to-lets across the country, predominantly the northern powerhouse cities.
Yeah.
So Birmingham, Liverpool, Leeds, Manchester, Sheffield, these high growth markets. Studied finance. We're looking to segue into my own property business and ventures.
Yep.
And that's by the grace of God, I come across you to help me on the journey. There was a talk on a Sunday. It was a talk related to wealth and business.
Yeah.
My coach, who I'd been working with at the time for about 4 years, more of a life coach rather than a business coach. We've had a really close relationship. I was mentoring his son as well on his journey.
Wow.
And I was just networking, having a conversation, and I introduced myself to you, and we got chatting. At that point in time, I didn't even know who you were. I hadn't come across your content, and you said, "Oh, you're in property." I was, "Oh, so am I." And then later in the evening, I saw you were the keynote speaker for the entire event. So we met on almost like neutral grounds, where I could be really authentic with you.
Yeah.
There was no preconceived notions on either side.
Yeah.
And whilst you were giving your talk, I remember I asked a question about your transformation from Uber driver to a property investor and entrepreneur with a multi-million-pound portfolio.
Yeah.
So that was the start. And it was a question at the end which led to this moment in which I asked for some guidance on my property business and journey.
Absolutely. This episode of the Wealth and Business Podcast is brought to you by our partner and sponsor, Ramsey & White. Ramsey & White is an award-winning specialist intermediary covering property, finance, wealth management, and estate agency. The Ramsey & White team can help you secure or source funding for your buy-to-lets, your HMOs, your commercial development, holiday lets, portfolio acquisition. They also offer financial reviews covering pension and investment. Not restricted by lenders or locations, the team at Ramsey & White will help you build momentum covering or growing your investment portfolio. Feel free to contact Ramsey & White, who is our partner and our sponsor for this episode of the Wealth and Business Podcast. The links to contacting Ramsey & White will be somewhere around the show notes. Make sure to reach out to them, as this company has actually helped me build my property portfolio over the last 6 years. And this is what it's all about, right? Growth, success, as we mentioned before. So growth in itself is a massive success, and I think one thing that changed for me as well was being able to ask the same kind of question you asked, when I was getting started in this whole thing about building wealth, creating success, becoming the greatest version of myself. At some point, sometimes you do feel lost. Sometimes you feel like, is it actually attainable? Because trust me, it's a journey of 1,000 miles that only begins with one simple step. But sometimes that simple steps is hard to take. That one simple step is so hard to take because we're surrounded by naysayers. We're surrounded by people that's gonna not lift us up or bring us down sometimes. So it's almost like sometimes you have to do something different you've never done before to achieve that growth, to actually transition from the ordinary to going through that extraordinary. And I remember when you asked me that question, the only thing I can actually picture was an entrepreneur who is already there All right. An entrepreneur who is thinking, okay, I'm already there, but how do I actually take that bold step to the extraordinary journey? And I saw that I can help with that. I saw I can take you from the ordinary to the extraordinary. And nothing else I could actually imagine in that very moment. I just saw in my head, I just saw ordinary take him on the journey to an extraordinary. And as soon as I came off the stage and I looked at you, I shook your hands, like, let's go on that journey of go making you the extraordinary. And to be honest, working with you in the last couple of months, I am so grateful that I made that choice to accept you into my circle. And I'm looking forward to what the future is.
So, in a prerequisite to your question, I would say the reason that I've become quite attracted to you is because you're doing quite well for yourself, but you've got very big ambitions. Given that we've spoken quite a lot in the recent time, I can see you've invested at 10x levels in yourself. Serious.
I do.
Spent time with some serious people, and you're still very motivated to unlock the best within yourself. And that you went through a 20-year journey, and only in the last 6 years that you've come out on the other side.
Yeah.
And I felt like I was going through that myself. I've been ploughing away at other bits, waiting for that moment to unleash to the surface. So that's one reason I really like what you're doing, is that the level of ambition you have and where you want to get to, even though you could probably pack it in now if you wanted to, you want to go to new heights. And I think it's amazing to be around someone that has that kind of vision and drive for themselves. And that's what I wanted close proximity to.
Yeah.
In terms of my vision in property, I've always had a focus on the northern cities. Historically speaking, I understand there's a lot of opportunity in the northern cities.
Yeah.
There is a massive transfer of wealth between the south and the north. In terms of what I'd like to do personally, along with working with the inner team, yourself, and the Wealth Circle community, is to really build my brand within property. Do a lot of collaborations. Do a lot of deals and work my way up to larger scale deals. Raising money and working with some esteemed people, investors, professionals, and more people like yourself.
Yeah.
Your journey in particular, that's what I really like about your book, The Test.
Yeah.
The main focus is on transformation.
Yeah.
So in terms of myself personally, in terms of being on camera, making content, sales, that's where I've got a bit of experience. But in terms of the shift in mindset rather away from property to a business to make the property successful, that's a shift that I need to go on myself, or I'm currently going on along with your guidance, because it's exactly what you talk about and preach. So
true.
These are serious lessons that I'm taking away in terms of my personal transformation.
True. Interesting you say that. You're very right. A lot of people, they're very interested about the property. They're very interested about the transaction. But what they actually not, in tune with, it's actually being an entrepreneur. Entrepreneur comes with a lot of creativity. Entrepreneur come with, are you a good marketer? Are you a good salesperson? Are you a good manager? Are you a good someone? Are you good in operation? Which is what you have to know. You have to have you don't have to be perfect at all of them. You're just going to be someone that understand how to delegate, how to administer, how to manage, how to turn things around. Because let's face fact, you can learn about property sourcing and would never sell a deal. If you don't understand entrepreneur. The creativity, entrepreneur. For me, entrepreneur was never about money. Entrepreneur was about the will. Entrepreneur was about creativity. Entrepreneur was always about making things happen. And I think in property, that's something a lot of people lack. People don't understand that it takes an entrepreneurial person, to actually make a deal happen. So an example is, I didn't have £100,000 cash sitting in the bank for me to start property. Today, I have built a multi-billion pound property portfolio. Generate significant income. Have over 12 staffs. Working. Within the Property Wealth Corporation structure. Including VAs and as well as including people on ground. We have an office. It takes a lot of being an entrepreneur to make these things happen within a short while. And I also believe in the power of company. A company means that being in a company of people, All right. People don't actually understand what a company really means. A company is not a business you start in your room. Yes, you can start the business in your room, but don't let it remain in your room. A company means actually going out, have an office, right? Have people in the company. So it means company of people doing things in one direction. That is what a company really has. But obviously in England, we're more into this sort of self-employed, let's get paid mentality rather than actually let's have a business that, grows into having people around you that can obviously stand test of time. So for me, that is something that I definitely have learned over the years. And apart from learning all of that over the years, I've also started to understand the power of networking. So again, you mentioned about the tests. Without networking, I don't think my business would be where it is right now.
But going back to the question you asked, in terms of finding out more about your year per se.
Yeah.
I know we're coming to the tail end of 2023, 2024 is just around the corner.
Yeah.
What I'd really love to find out, Dr. Daniel, is what was the biggest challenge you had this year in your property journey or your business journey?
Good question. Wow. Interestingly, at the beginning of 2023, I wrote something down on my paper, on my vision book, because I have this vision book where I've planned my next 10 to 20 years. So I have this big book I carry with me every single day where I've actually planned my next 10 years to 20 years. So in that 10 to 20 years, what I've done is actually work my way back per year. So this year in that book, so the initial part of the book, I wrote down raising 1.5 million, which a long time ago I've achieved that. So I got to the first milestone where I've raised over 1.5 million, to expand my business, to whether that's monies I've invested in deals, whether that's monies I've invested in, marketing, whether that being, basically I raised that 1.5 million to basically establish this company today. And 90% of those funds is being paid back to all my investors. There is no one single investor that is listening to this or who has borrowed me as little as £100,000 who I haven't paid back. So 90% of my investors' money has been paid back, distributed back to them, and last year I wrote at the beginning of 2022, I said by the year 2023, I would have raised 3 million. So that would have been my fresh £3 million raise. So in money raising finance, sometimes you have the first series, you have the second, you have the third, you have the fifth. Obviously, I'm not trying to go venture capital at the moment, but I'm just saying this is just basic way I've structured my money raising, processes. So I said, I'm going to raise my first one. I remember in 2019 when I first wrote out, I want to raise 1.5 million, and I think I achieved that. By the end of 2022, I achieved raising over 1.5 million pounds. So because I've done that, I wrote down. And I said in 2021, I wrote down that by 2023, I would have raised £3 million. I would have taken my property portfolio to around about 12 million. And I wrote that down. So at the beginning of the year, I haven't shared this with my students, with my mentees. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to raise £3 million by the end of the year. So the biggest challenge for me in 2023 was that I wrote it down that I'm going to raise 3 million. All right. But there was something I didn't do, right? I kept networking with the same kind of class of people. So people who gave me the initial 1.5 million. So for me, it's almost like I was in my comfort zone, right? I was just in my comfort zone because I could easily reach for £100,000 and I'll get it. I could easily reach for £50,000, I'll get it. So in my mind, initially it was like, okay, yeah, no problem. If the next project comes through, I'll easily just reach out. So there wasn't a lot of stretching myself, so my mind was, I already have that network. I can always reach out to get the 3 million. But what I did not do, which I eventually did past the middle of the year, was to actually say, you know what? I cannot be in the kind of rooms that I was in 2021, 2022. I needed to be in a kind of a different room. So reaching out for international investors, does that make sense? So this is something that I never really wrote down because I always thought that all the money I was going to raise is in the UK. Does that make sense? So every single funds I need to raise to grow my portfolio to 100 million by the year 2033, those funds will come in from UK investors. So, and that was the biggest mistake that I made in 2022. So somehow I shared the story with my Wealth Circle community members. Oh yeah, I'm going to raise £3 million. And these are all the investors, because I had a few people I was talking to. But going past January, February, March, April, May, June, round about June, those funds that I was thinking that I would have raised, because the goal was that by June 2023, I would have raised the £3 million, thinking that I was going to raise that money within, investors who are currently here in the UK. I had to change the strategy, from the summertime to now collaboratively connect with multi-billionaires and multi-millionaires outside of the UK, which means it was completely out of my comfort zone. Right. First, I had to build a new level of, conversation with those individuals. And because they don't really know me, because they don't really know the UK laws, they don't really understand how property investments work in the UK. So it took me from June all the way to now, all right, to keep, rubbing shoulders, being around the rooms whenever they were in town, and collaboratively engaging with them and so on and so forth. So it became very, very, very challenging. So by October this year, I wasn't hitting my goals of raising £3 million.
10 months into
10 months into the year, I wasn't raising the £3 million that I was going to raise. But something changed for me though. And towards about November ending, I realized that actually something changed. The kind of connections that I made in 2023, boy, like, it was absolutely insane. So I met someone that eventually has got me invitation to the US to meet a very high net worth individual. And not just that high net worth individual in the US, as well as, I'm not going to say give away the information. I am meeting a very top individual again as well in the US. So that's the second person. And I also had the privileges of, a few weeks ago, I sat in a room with a former president of a particular country, and we had a very good, conversation. And I actually said I wanted to meet with high net worth individuals in their country, and that conversation was very, very, very successful as well. And one of the things I came to realize as I speak to you and I have a reflection now is, yes, by just before Christmas, a lot of my investors have come through to giving me that 3 million. All right. Now, but I had to change a lot of strategy, because what gets you here won't get you there. So sometimes you build and you build, you get to your comfort zone. So for me, I think I go into my comfort zone as well, because by 10 months in, it shouldn't have taken me that 10 months in.
What was the biggest change aside from the actual room? What was the biggest change within yourself? What were you doing differently that you were doing in that room that raised the initial 1.5 million to the rooms that you're in now with, people that are very influential for countries and corporations?
Yeah.
What is it you're doing different about yourself to attract that kind of trust, that level of funding?
I think longevity, because I've been here now I've been doing what I'm doing now for over the last, 6-7 years. I've been doing what I'm doing now. Automatically having a personal brand, gives me a lot of invitation, to very exclusive rooms. Okay. And what am I doing differently is that my experience has kicked in. So before the year 2023, I was, for example, I only written one book, right? And before the year 2023, I only probably have met maybe one millionaire, the first multimillionaire I ever met in the US, John Mallott, and we built a great relationship, and we've spoken a couple of times. And the first time I ever met such an individual was a couple of years ago. And probably at that time, there are ways I could actually dip into a conversation. Maybe I still did not have the confidence of having that conversation at that level. But having not met multiple of them, because the truth is that wealthy people, the way they discuss, and it's very, very completely different, and obviously they know you, they know when you're having a conversation with them and when you're taking a conversation somewhere. For me, one of the things that I've come to realize is that they're more humble. You know, wealthy people are very humble people.
Okay.
Yeah, they're very humble people. They they want you to share your experience. You know, they want you to show facts and figures, and they want you to refer. They want reference. So what can you refer to that you've achieved? So it's very achievement-based conversation. What have you achieved? What's next? So imagine if I haven't achieved a lot, that conversation is it's not going to lead anywhere. So they don't want you to learn on their money.
Understood.
They don't want you to come and gamble. They don't want gamblers. They want you to be able to show them what have
you deliver.
What have you delivered? You know, can I check? Can I read?
Just to recap what we were discussing.
Yeah.
The biggest challenge for you last year is January 2023.
No, this year.
Yeah, January 2023. So start of this year, you said you were going to raise 3 million.
Yeah.
6 months in, you hadn't done it. 9 months in, you hadn't done it. And things are starting to materialize later on in the year. And the way you've been getting to that position is that you've changed the rooms in which you're dealing with people.
Absolutely.
And also your experience over the last 6-7 years is now really coming to the forefront.
Yeah.
Your case studies and what you've delivered on so far is helping build that trust and credibility alongside your brand itself. Yeah, absolutely.
And this is one of the things I want the audience to really understand, right? So sometimes it seems like you're working, you're actually getting a result. But what's happening is that you're building a solid foundation. So, and all of a sudden you start reaping the ripple effect, or actually the compounding effect, you start to actually reap the reward. You know, I think the biggest challenge for people who are starting is sometimes they feel like they need it now. I want it today. I want it tomorrow. I want it yesterday. So yes, at the beginning of the year, I wanted to raise £3 million. And 6 months, 8 months, 9 months, even the 10th month, even close to the end of 11 months, that's when I actually started seeing the limelight. And going into the 12th month, and I'm getting some very, very, serious agreements and principles. And I could have actually lost up completely. But again, going back to what I said before, what got you here won't get you there. You have to understand that this thing is serious. When it comes to raising money, when it comes to building an extraordinary business, what investors want to really see is results. Who are you, basically? All right. What have you done? Right. And because it's numbers based, it's facts based. If you can't deliver numbers and facts, they're not going to invest with you. It's as simple as that. Experience as well. Sure. So for me, those are things that has actually transformed the rooms that I'm in. I'm able to hold and have a very serious conversation, and I'm able to follow through that process. And again, something else I like to share is that sometimes you can start building this relationship with this high net worth individual. They might not invest in you initially. Doesn't mean no.
Sure.
It means that they just want to watch you a little bit more, and then they're going to invest with you.
Got you.
So for me, being able to be in these rooms where I'm having these very engaging conversations, leading somewhere where they say, okay, no, I don't have it. Let me introduce to this person. I don't have it. Let me introduce to the next person. That's because they can actually go and check and see, where I am where I'm being found, what people are saying about me.
Got you.
And that's really helped me achieve some tremendous results eventually.
Got
Looking
you.
back now,
Got you.
As of the time we're having this podcast, that, initially 2023 wasn't the year where I thought, easily by the 10th month I would have achieved so many things, which is stretching myself beyond what I've achieved before. And I was almost writing it off. And then a couple of weeks ago, I wrote it back up. So don't be too quick to write things off.
That's really good advice. That's really good advice.
Hold on to it.
All right. Well, look, thanks for telling me about your challenge from last year.
Yeah.
What's on the horizon for 2024 for you, Property Wealth, your property business, your portfolio?
Very good question. I think at the big, again, I said I wrote a plan down in, way back. And last year I wrote down and I said, we want to build £100 million in assets nationwide in the UK. All right. And that portfolio, we want a minimum net. We want a net at least 1.2 million pound a year. Sometimes the reason why I pronounce these things out and the reason why I share my visions out loud is that the Bible says in the book of Habakkuk 2, it says, write the vision down, plain on tablets. For those who are Christians, it says, so that you might run with it. Yes, write it for the whole world to see. Does that make sense? You don't have to be a secret. Let it all out for the whole world to see. Because sometimes, yes, people are going to listen and be inspired by it, or people are going to listen to say, you're just talking. But at least you've written it down, you said it out, and it's another way of you holding yourself accountable, and that's what you're working towards as well. For 2024, I think is the real materialization of the plan. So we said, I stated, and I wrote this to my team, obviously you're part of that now. And I said to my guys at the office last year in 2022, I said, we're going to go and own a property in every city. So whether it being that us or whether that being for our client. And what that gives us the ability to do is, because yes, we're quite heavy in educating people. We want to be able to do property deals in every single city. All right, as one of the fastest growing diverse community group, all right, that is owning properties across England. And this year, we bought a few properties in Leeds, all right. We bought a few properties in Newcastle last year. We bought a few properties, a few deals coming through at the moment in Manchester. So already that's 3 cities. Actually, the 4th city, Bristol, as well.
Okay, you're doing Bristol as well.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, all these different cities that we've already done 1 deal or 2 deals coming through. Again, a lot of this content is not yet published. They're going to be coming out, by the way. So for those of you who want to watch a lot of our property vlogs, they're being released on Sundays at 6 p.m. So make sure you go and watch. Stay tuned to that particular channel. To watch playlist to watch property content on property vlogs on a Sunday. So in the new year, what we're going to be doing is to following through that process. Each city is with at least a minimum of 3 to 6 projects. Each city is minimum of 3 to 6 projects. So that would then give me the ability to it's almost like playing a Monopoly game.
Yeah.
So at any given point in time, should any member of our World Circle community, should our client, myself, my projects, should we be doing a deal, we have case study that is already established that is owned within our portfolio. And guess what? Lenders love it. Lenders love the fact that you can tell them you have a property owned within a 1, 2, 3 to 5 miles away. And this is the rental income. This is the valuation of the property. They love it. So one of the reasons why I have had high valuation in the South, where, for example, there's a property in my portfolio, the valuation is about 1.1 million. And on the same road, I have another property being developed, which I'm doing the same thing. All right. And I know it's going to even be worth more than 1.1 million. I have another property on the same road. Initially, way back, was valued at 950,000 pounds. When I refinance that property, it's going to be worth 1.2 anyway. So lenders love the fact that you're not telling them what you assume or maybe what you saw on the data, but actually what is actually proven that another lender another lender compared to themselves has actually lent to you. And as well as you can also show tenancy agreements that actually property A that I have on the same road rents for this amount above the rental market statistics of the area. So they love it. So for me, in the year 2024, I think it's going to, God willing, being on our side, that's a year where, we're going to go and, start achieving, the 3 to 6 acquisition per city. And that actually allows us to expand our portfolio, not just for our personal self, but for our community and our clients. So when we're building a portfolio for a client who is looking to acquire an asset, and we tell them, okay, that's what the end result is going to be, is fact-based of what has been achieved.
Yeah, that's a really good way to bring a client on board. Say, look, this is exactly what you'll get in this location. This is exact rent. This is the reason you'll get that is because I've already done it.
Yeah.
Or someone in the community has already done it.
Yeah.
And it must do quite a lot for your network, right? You probably know the builders there and the local agents, the valuers.
Exactly. It's like Charlie. There's one of my students, graduate now, Charlie. So Charlie actually bought a house on the same road as me. So Charlie paid think it was about either between 390 or 425. So I own it. There's a road I own a property in the south here, south of England, London. And this particular property, he bought it for, I think about 425 or 430. And he spent about 185 on it or less. I think he spent around about 165 or 185 on it. And the GDV, best case scenario, was 700. All right. And by the time he finished, he got 700. He got £700,000 on the deal. On that road, though his property was even smaller, his rooms were smaller, and I already had a property that was worth 800,000 on that same road. He was still able to get 700. So I'll give another example is Anthony Howell. I have Anthony Howell. He did a conversion. All right, 5 miles away from, of one of my property. He got £800,000 revaluation. When he was preparing his valuation pack, when he did his valuation pack, he actually took my own ASTs as well and attached it as a bundle and gave it to the valuer who was coming to value his property from a different lender, because he was a first-time landlord, so he had to go with a different lender. So particularly on that road, I was with Lend Invest. So he went with, I can't remember the name of the lender he went with now, but him being able to pull out 4 valuation reports, 6 AST contracts from my, portfolio and present it over as a pack inclusive to a lender, he got £800,000 revaluation. He made £400,000 from that one deal. So, and that's the kind of result that I want to produce for my Wealth Circle students and my communities and as well as my clients. So, though it's not guaranteed, but it's almost like secure.
Good example of what's being done already.
Secured. What's been done already. And that's one of the things I love about property. It's been done before. You can achieve similar results in the same location. That's when you do due diligence. What are you doing due diligence on? You're doing due diligence to find comparison. But what makes it so exciting is you're not presenting comparables of what somebody told you about. You're presenting facts comparables. Facts comparables to a lender, to an investor. One, they're going to invest with you. For a lender, they're going to lend to you. And that's what I want to create.
Amazing. Great that you've got so many examples to give to your students and people in your community. Say, look, this is exactly what it's going to be. You even give them your ASTs to show. Give it straight. Give you the AST. Sometimes even give you the bank statement to show, actually, look, this is the rent. This is the rent for this room 5 Homesdale Road. All right, rooms 5, 69 Homesdale Road, for example. Room 1, 129 Homesdale Road. Room 4, number 127 Wickford Road, for example, and it's all the same locations. It's amazing. Well, just as a last question, Dr. Daniel, I'd really love to get your take on the market itself. I know in 2023 it's been slightly turbulent for some investors. There's been a lot of external factors, inflation being a big one of those. A lot of uncertainty in the market. Now, in December 2023, we're coming to a point in which inflation is coming down. The data does suggest this. Lenders are competing with each other to lower rates, to have more competitive, mortgage offers for clients. Albeit it looking more positive moving forward. What is, in your mind, as you're a businessman, you forecast the hurdles ahead. What challenges do you think may come up for a property entrepreneur or investor over the next 12 months in 2024?
I think definitely a lot of people who have been in the game for a while, they're going to make more money if they keep investing. Those who are coming into the market obviously need to learn one of the most important skill. Right? One of the most important skill in this industry is creativity. You must have an open mind as a property investor, as a property entrepreneur. You have to have an open mind. See, the people who are going to make money in 2024 are people with an open mind. That's number one. Number two, people who are going to make money in property in 2024 are people who understand the power of leverage. In the US, this is something I learned from one of my mentors in the US, the power of leveraging. You know, leveraging is the biggest way to wealth creation, because I have come to the point and conclusion you're never going to have enough money to do real estate. So if that is the fact, then you have to be good at leverage. How do you leverage debt? How do you re-leverage debt? How do you structure debt? And how do you restructure debt? Let me tell you, the government himself don't have money to run projects. The government doesn't even have the money to run the economy. Do you know what the government is good at doing?
Printing money, borrowing.
They're good in printing money. They're good in borrowing. Above all, they're good in restructuring, and they're good in leveraging. Does that make sense? And that's what you have to learn. You have to learn to re-leverage. Let me tell you about banking institutions. So the bank, if as big as Barclays, every single customer go to Barclays and pull their funds out of Barclays today, there will be no Barclays.
Mm-hmm.
The bank will crash.
Sure.
But what the bank does is they're so good in keeping the customers happy. One, they're so good in offering the service. They're so good, all right, making you feel welcomed. So you keep leaving your money for them to keep trading that money. And that's what entrepreneurs need to be able to do. Entrepreneurs need to be able to make their investors be like, you're the sweetest girl in the room. And nurture that relationship so badly. Because the more they keep their money with you, the more you can acquire more assets, and those assets are going to appreciate in value, and you're going to wait for the appreciation to take place so you can re-leverage and pay your investor off. It's a time game. I'll give you an example, right? In 2020, I took about £300,000 from my investors. Took £300,000 in my investors in 2020. I built my first property portfolio, which went from about 1.5 to around about 2 million in the first, in 2020. Now, when I took that money, I bought those assets. I added value to them, right? So that portfolio was not worth about, say, for example, £2 million. So I managed to, when I did the first refinance, I paid significant of my investors back. I only benefited from cash flow. So month in, month out, the tenant paid the rent, I paid the mortgage, I pay the cost of running the property, and I make something, good. Now, I fixed those mortgages for about 2 years, right? But something happened to this particular location that I'm talking about, where this property is worth about 2 million. Regardless, the market in that location actually went up by 8% between 2021 and 2023.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Now, some of those properties, went up in value. Like I said, the location went up by 8%. So imagine if, for example, a property that I own for £1 million went up by 8%. How much equity is that? That's about £80,000,
mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Just by doing nothing. So by doing nothing, a property that I bought in 2000 for 1 million, for example, is gone up by 80K. So what do? If my mortgage was running out, I can either access that 80K by actually re-leveraging on the new value. Even though I had already bought it, refurbished it, refinanced it, in 2020, but it's gone up again by 80K. So again, I re-leveraged it, for example, and I took out, a significant amount from the £80,000. That's just a basic example. So let me give you another example. So there was a property that I owned, and I, at that time, year 2020, it was worth 700,000 when I first refinanced it. When the mortgage went out, all right, recently, and I went back to the bank, my rent at that time was about less than 4,000. My rent was about £4,800. And obviously, rental income has gone up because there's demand in rent. That same property now produces £5,750 rent. So in less than less than 18 months period, the rent has gone up by over £1,000, almost £1,000, right? Now the income has gone up by £1,000 a month. So times £1,000, for example, times 12, that's £12,000. So if, for example, I was generating £30,000 profit a year, if I now add £1,000 extra in the new year, So £12,000, that's £1,000 a month. So that's £12,000 plus £30,000. All of a sudden, I'm earning £42,000. So the rent has gone up. The value of the property has gone up. I have now taken the new rental income plus the mortgage. Yeah, the mortgage has run out. I've now gone to the bank and said, actually, bank, value this property because I think this, and they agreed with me. All of a sudden, I'm able to re-leverage the same asset, take as much money as I want. All right. If I do have some investors I need to pay, I can also go back because I've just leveraged from the bank and pay those investors up. So the biggest skill you need to learn in 2024 is the power to leverage, the power to understand how to re-leverage assets in a safe way, so that also you're not overgeared as well.
Sure.
All right, because if you become extremely overgeared, then you might also burn out. So for me, this is just some things that I think a lot of especially as a newbie investor, you need to master it, you need to learn it, you need to do whatever you can to really understand how it works, because it may not serve you in 2024, but it may serve you in 2025, or it may serve you in 2026. So I learned this through when I bought my first investment property in 2019. I didn't understand it quite well, but 2000 I kind of got a bit better. 2021 I got better. 2022 I basically I've invested a lot in myself. So and I just kind of understand how this works. And in 2024, something else I'm personally doing is I'm actually looking for how to transition into getting big deep pocket investors, so that we start to go to where I want to be able to invest in other people's deal. I want people to bring me a deal where I don't have to sit down and find the deals and be able to earn hands off on other people's deals. So there's so much out there. Kind of look into 2024 what I would advise and what I would love to do. I think I've been kind of able to share a bit of information on what I'm looking to achieve.
I like the frame you gave on the answer to the question.
Yeah.
So just so I've got you clear, the biggest challenge that you see ahead is people not being creative. So you're essentially being a standard investor would help people understand why so many landlords are leaving the market, right? But then also to leverage as well. So creativity and leverage are the two things people you foresee is if you don't overcome or use those things, then you will be at a disposition.
Yeah. If you don't learn how to be creative, if you don't learn how to understand what leverage is and how to utilize it, it's not, you're never going to have enough money to do property.
Well, even if you had £500,000 in cash or £1 million in cash, you buy a few properties and you've run out of money, right?
Yeah, because I've seen someone who came to me the other day and said, I have £500,000 in my account and I want to buy properties. It's like, how many properties can I buy? And I said, you can buy as many properties as you can. It's like, okay. So I gave them a word, and a few months later, they went and took £500,000 and they bought 3 properties. They bought 3 properties, and guess what they did? They actually went somewhere outside of London and they split £500,000 and bought them the whole property cash.
Okay.
And then the property is generating, each of the properties, they're making about, I think it's about £1,500 because there's no mortgage on them. So they're making about £1,500 or between £1,250 to about £1,500, gross. That's what they're making. So now the next question was, they bought it. They came back, yeah, we bought it. And I'm like, okay, good luck, fine. It's like, but we'd like to buy more properties. So, and we don't know what to do now. So you can have cash and you can buy assets, but the asset is not going to multiply itself. You're going to learn to re-leverage the assets plus the cash equity that you have in order for you to be able to actually, the whole system is encouraged on debt. But you have to understand the difference between good debt and bad debt and how to leverage good debt to duplicating wealth.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you so much.
I look forward to 2024 and being creative and using leverage.
Absolutely. Good to have you, man.
Pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.